and welcome to the new video. If you have any questions about the video, leave a comment below. So here's a quick information for the people who just come to the video, take the POV and leave. There's gonna be two POVs in the description. First, Occultist. The POV of the Occultist is gonna be the thing that you see on the screen. The second is gonna be the necromancer, and the necromancer is basically something that would transition my Occultist into if I had more currency and I wanted to push the build even farther. If you're a person who never experienced Arakaali Fang build, there's a timestamp for you in the video that is gonna be named something like Arakaali Fang, how it works, and it's gonna be somewhere around the end of the video. And there's like a very good detailed explanation how actually the Arakaali Fang works and how you're supposed to be using that. If you're more like an advanced player and you're looking into getting some kind of a decent build, maybe on a witch, or you simply maybe just want to try Arakaali Fang, I started this build on one divine, or even less I would say than one divine. Eventually I did transform my Arakaali Fang from one divine to about, I don't know, 35 or more, because I was able to, gather the currency to buy myself a squire. While I was streaming, I was able to gather some clips. I did a league content. You're gonna see after the completing this map that I'm doing the league content. And I would surprisingly say that the minion build, at least in the Arakaali Fang, is quite good for the league. But personally, I don't really like the league. And because of that, since I don't really like the league content, my tournament level, I think that's how it's called, is way below 200. So take it with a pinch of salt, because probably the league content is gonna get a bit more difficulty, or maybe you're gonna get one shot on this build if you just push the league content a bit farther. But I'm not gonna do that, because like I said, I'm not really too interested in the league content. It's very rewarding, I can say that, but it's not interesting for me. So now you can just enjoy a couple of clips that I was able to gather, me killing different bosses and so on. As usual, in most of my videos, you're gonna see a lot of timestamps. So if you're just looking for like a specific thing, such as what kind of shield I'm using, there's gonna be a timestamp that's gonna take you to the timestamp what shield I'm using and what shields I'm recommending.
Smiles upon you. Choose your reward.
One shall murder the other. A mouse for my might.
For your bandit choice, you're choosing to kill all of the bandits and gaining 2 passive points. The Pantheon choice, we're gonna be using Sword of the Brine King mainly for the stone, and you can upgrade fully the Brine King because later on you might be speccing out of the purity of elements, and so you're gonna need those chill and the freeze. And for the minor one, this you don't have to upgrade it. This is the Sword of Ryslatha. We're mainly using that just to have uptime on our worms flask, because sometimes you might just run out of the spiders and you're gonna be you're gonna have some kind of boss encounter or whatever, and you need to pop your flask. That's why we're using the Ryslatha. I'm not really too happy about the Ryslatha, but unfortunately it's like we need to have it just in case you need to pop your worms. But otherwise, well, if you're mapping and you're gonna be using the red altars, just stick with the Soul of Aberrant, because the Burning Ground is gonna get very annoying. So your Ascendancy points should go firstly in Profane Bloom, then you should go for the additional Cursed, Void Beacon, and lastly Withering Presence. For your flask choice, we're gonna be using a Hallowed Life Flask. Just remember, you're gonna be using a Hallowed Life Flask, because this flask allows us to we can use it 3 times because it consumes the less amount of charges. That's why I always say a Hallowed Life Flask is the best flask if you're running some kind of life build. And then you want to craft yourself a suffix for the corrupting blood and bleeding immunity. The prefix is up to your choice. There's multiple choices that you can use. One of them would be something like whenever you're low life, you can use, then the flask gonna apply instantly. Or you can have the one like me that half of it applies instantly. So that's like a choice for you. The worm flask, no matter what, you need it, because whenever you're gonna be starting the map, you need to pop your worms to summon your spiders. No matter what, you need it. Then we're gonna be using our auto flask. I'm using a Quicksilver with the gain charges when enemy hit us, and I'm using the reduce effect of curses. Then I have a Granite flask with the increased armor and the gain charges, and then I'm using a Sapphire with the gain charges and the corrupting blood immunity. While I'm using the Sapphire flask, because it requires the less amount of charges, and we have the gain mode, pretty much while you're gonna be mapping, this flask will be permanently up and you will never see that you're getting a bleed or a corrupting blood. But every now and then this flask might go down because you're not killing the monsters or whatever. That's why you have the steel skin and the life flask to deal with the bleeding and the corrupting blood. So for our main weapon, since this is a spider build, we're gonna be using Arakaali's Fang. And you actually don't care about the stats on the Dodger. As long as you can just buy the cheapest one, go for it. Because all of the stats on this Dodger give us nothing. Expect the stop 100% chance to trigger spiders on kill. And your links for the Arakaali Fang should be follow like this. If you're just gonna be playing with the Arakaali Fang because you cannot acquire or you cannot afford Squire, your link's gonna be looking a little bit different. So you're gonna be using Multi-Strike, Withering Touch, and Unbound Elements. That's your setup for your Dodger. Once you have the Squire, you're gonna replace the Unbound Elements with damage on full life. Right, so moving up to shield. Squire is gonna be the best in slot for you. It's simply because it's gonna give the Arakaali Fang 3 additional gems that we can use, and the gems that we're gonna be using is melee physical damage, unbound elements, and this is very important, we're gonna be using divergent minion damage. The divergent minion damage is better than Awaken one. But if you cannot afford the Squire, the next best thing that you can do is use Victorious Charity. This is just gonna give you some life, bunch of generic resistance, and your minions gonna be getting some frenzy charges. There's another like a mid version of the budget. You could use Aegis just for the for the block and be a little bit more tanky. So that's 3 possibilities of the shields for you to pick, but your ultimate goal should be chasing the Squire. So for your amulet slot there are 2 possibilities. Firstly, you always want to prioritize anointing charisma on whichever option do you choose on your amulet, and this is the note. So once you know you need to anoint your charisma, so you have 2 possibilities. You can use Solstice Vigil. This will give you simply a free temporal chains, and we only get life and mana regen. The increased damage does not work for the spiders, so when you're gonna be buying, just look for those 2 stats. And then you would like to have a blasphemy and temporal chain set up in your helmet or anywhere else, and then you would use Despair in your profane proxy ring, so that's gonna be triggering by the skitterbot. But if you choose to use the Impresence because you want a little bit more chaos resistance, and then you should look for the life, then you would have pretty much your setup would be other way around. So you would have a blasphemy, despair, and your temporal chain should be in the ring. So moving on to the rings, like I was saying with the amulet, depending which amulet did you choose, then you wanna socket the remaining cures in your profane proxy ring, and you always wanna have the left ring because you're gonna be sacrificing the skitterbot that chills enemy, and he's gonna be cursing. So your profane proxy ring should be always in the left socket. Do not go for the right socket, as you're gonna be losing the shock on the enemies. And the next ring, and this is very important, you should buy yourself a synthesized base with -3 total mana cost, and then you should try to craft it. I think I have someone, yeah, something, and you have to craft it in a way that you missing stats. For example, I was missing a lot of resistance, so I just was spamming some random essence. I was trying to like Alchen Scour. Sometimes I might do some harvest, whatever the crafting method you want to use, as long as you hit something useful for your build. But the 3 total mana cost is very important. For the reason is this will make your Cyclone cost 0, so you can pretty much hold the Cyclone all the time. And then you want to look for the open prefix and craft yourself -7 non-channeling. This will decrease the cost of skills. For example, my Ruin Blade costs 0, but then the Frostbeam costs 9, the Steel Skin costs 4, and the Convocation costs 2, and your Flesh Offering costs 24. If you won't have the -3 total mana cost, this will increase cost of all of your skills, and you might run into the mana issue. That's why it's very important to get yourself the synthesized base. Once you have the synthesized base, like I have over here, you would just scour it. You would apply 4 desired catalyst, because you only need 4 on the white items, and then you would simply try to spam craft it somehow. Either you would go Alchen Scour, maybe some essence, whatever is available in your inventory. And this is your belt. You're not gonna be doing any shenanigans with the belt. You just wanna get yourself a darkness belt with at least the minimum, I would say, is the 80% increased effect of Abyss Jewels. You can go higher, but at some point they're gonna go very ridiculously expensive. So I would just focus that as like a, you know, when you literally got most of your items sorted out. And then you want to buy yourself 2 ghastly eyes. They have to be ghastly eyes, because later on you're gonna be scaling some damage from the ghastly eyes. And you want to buy yourself the best minion jewels that you can get, such as like life, maybe some flat damage, accuracy, because this is gonna be scaled by 83% in my case by the belt. So for your body armor, you're gonna be using a brass dome. And we're mainly using the brass dome because it gives us a huge chunk of armor, gives us maximum resistance, and we cannot take critical damage. The downside of the brass dome that we're using about 200 HP. So I don't think that's like a huge amount of downside for the brass dome, that it provides us with large amount of defenses. Then your sockets, I mean the gems that you're gonna be using is Skitterbot, Purity of Element, Determination. That's your free, when you're gonna be following the budget version, that's the first 3 auras that I will be using. Once you get yourself an Enlighten, then you socket Enlighten, and then you can use Malevolence. If you're wondering how to make the 4 blue sockets on the brass dome, I will show you a very easy trick. So you would buy yourself a brass dome, then you would type sock, you would do 3 sockets, then you would go blue, you would do at least 3 blues. Since you would only have 3 blue sockets over here, this will guarantee you 3 blue sockets. Then you go back to the sockets, let me just find it, and then you will spam between 3 and 4 until you get the socket number 4 over here as a blue. And then you simply just click the mode 6 sockets, and most likely you're gonna get 2 reds. And then you wanna do only a 5 link. We don't necessarily need a 6 link. You might eventually do a 6 link and choke additional aura, something like a vitality, I would say. So for the boots that you're gonna be wearing, you're gonna be using Corpse Walker. Their main reason for using them is to automate us the generating of the corpses, because as long as you're gonna be moving, you're just gonna be generating the corpses, and that's the main purpose of those boots. Because when you're gonna be zipping through the map, like using spamming the Whirling Blade, Frostblink, the corpses are just gonna be generated for you automatically thanks to those boots. And then when the spider is gonna be killing the enemies, you're gonna get a new spiders from the corpses. So that just helps us with automating the build. You could actually change the Corpse Walker to Stampede, but then you're gonna be running into some trouble because you're gonna have to cyclone pretty much all the time just to generate the corpses. It's gonna be a little bit faster with the Stampedes because you could get rid of your Quicksilver Flask, but then you're losing a link because you will have to have something like Cyclone, Casual Channeling, Flesh Offering, and you have to have a Desecrate over here. And of course the Desecrate gonna cost mana as well, so you might run into some troubles as well. But of course the Stampede gonna come with additional anointment as well. So there is a possibility for that, but I would say for the sake of, you know, making sure that the build feels nice, I would just ignore the Stampede, but there is an option for you. And the links for the Corpse Walker that you're going to be using is Cyclone, Casual Channeling, Flesh Offering. You can use the Divergent one, this will give you a little bit increased attack speed. And then you want to have a level 1 Divine Ire, and the Divine Ire should be socketed or as a single link. Do not link the Divine Ire with Casual Channeling and Flesh Offering. You don't want to do that. You just want to have a 1 link Divine Ire, and that's it. So for your helmet, you're gonna be using an Ancient Skull. Generally, this helmet is very bad for the minion builds, because whenever they crit, they take a lot of chunk of the HP as a chaos damage. But since our spiders from Arakaali Fang are immortal, so this helmet just gives us ridiculous amount of damage, and on top of that, this helmet is cheap. And then once you get enough currency, you can look for the flesh offering enchantment. And now the gems that you're gonna be keeping in your helmet really depends whichever amulet did you choose. In my example, I'm using a solstice, so I'm using temporal chains, and the quality does not matter as we're gonna have this temporal chain on a blasphemy link. So then you're gonna have temporal chain, blasphemy, increase area of effect, and I'm using steel skin. You can swap steel skin for the molten shell, because the molten shell will give you a little bit more mitigation since we have a good chunk of armor, but I do like the steel skin because of the bleed immunity. But like I said, there's a possibility for you to swap to molten shell if you choose to. So for the gloves, we're just gonna be using a rare pair of gloves, and what stats I will be looking is primarily I would look for as high as dexterity as you can, then I would look for a life and any resistance that you're missing and any other minor things that you can get. And then you just try to use the Searing Exile just to get the minion damage. And on the note of the gloves, you actually do not need the grave binds. There is some kind of misinformation in the community that you need the grave binds to trigger Arakaali spiders while mapping. You have to understand one thing. Your spiders, whenever they kill a poison enemy, it counts as your kill. So actually the grave bind makes no sense in the build, unless you just need to some chaos resistance and the life gain on kill. That's pretty much what those gloves gives you, the two stats. So I would just simply ignore them and don't use them, and I would just go for the rare pair of gloves. And the links that you're gonna be using in your gloves is gonna be a Frostblink. We don't care about the quality. We're gonna be using Anomalous Convocation. This just gives you your minions increase movement speed, and then we're using faster attacks with Wind Blades. So you might be wondering why we don't use a Necro, since this is a minion build and Necro is like very good at just doing a minion builds because he has a lot of generic damage. And it really comes down to this. If you want to transform your Occultist into a necromancer, you need way more currency because you're gonna run into some trouble, such as the Occultist give us additional cures, and we can run hexproof map. That's something that necromancer doesn't have, but can still be very fixed, very easy. You would have to spec yourself into Whisper of Doom, but then you're gonna be losing your charisma anointment on your amulet. So you would probably have to drop down like a Purity of Elements aura and just rune Blasphemy on your mana. So later on in the end game, like in very super end game, probably you could do that, but it's gonna cost you a lot of pretty much currency. Another thing is I'm using Profane Bloom for most of my clearing, so I don't have to swap any gems and the Profane Bloom just simply explodes the pack. That's something that the necromancer does not have. So you would have to sacrifice one of the gems to Divergent Melee Splash just to have like a even clear speed. So if we compare necromancer or an occultist on the mapping, I would say they're pretty much equal. Right, just the necromancer is just gonna be better if you start doing the bosses, like the hard bosses, the uber bosses. Then yeah, the necro should outperform the occultist for about 5 or more mils. So that's a lot of damage, but you're gonna have to spend even more currency. Just have that in mind. So you might be wondering, how did I level up the build until we can actually transition into Arakaali's Fang? Since our passive tree follows a very generic setup of the minion damage, what I was doing, I was just using Summon Raging Spirit, minion damage, minion speed, faster casting. And at some point I just swapped faster casting for Unleash, and that mostly got me to about level 59 when I could transition into Arakaali Fang, and from that point I was just using the Arakaali Fang build. So probably there's gonna be a bunch of you who just gonna copy and paste the POB, which have actually listened to the full video, and you're gonna run into this trouble. I cannot put all of my auras in my brass dome and you're just gonna leave a comment. Right, so let me explain this step by step. First step, you need to have a 5 link and you need to have an enlighten level 3. Right, so once you have that, the next step is gonna be you need to have anointed a charisma on your amulet. That's the second step. And the third step, you need to have a small cluster jewel with the increased reservation efficacy of skills. And this needs to be a 3-pointer because you need those 2 small nodes over here. And then you're gonna be spamming until you get malevolence, reservation or determination. They have the same value, so whichever you get, that's gonna be fine. The only reason I choose malevolence because it's gonna give me, it's give me a little bit chaos resistance. But if you're gonna be spamming and with the out spamming the jewel and you're not getting anywhere, as long as you hit determination, that's gonna be fine for the time being until you can craft yourself a malevolence. I'm gonna leave a clip somewhere in the video how I crafted my own small cluster jewel. So on the start of every single map, what you want to do, as long as you have your Arakaali Fang and you have your Corpse Walker, you want to do like 2 circles. Then you want to stand, this is very important, you want to stand on the corpses, you want to hold Divine Ire, you want to press your worms, and then you have your minions. And then you can start zipping around the map, spamming Convocation and going into zoom zoom. Right, and on the note, on the zooming on the maps, this is another thing. Let me just summon my spiders. And here's the thing, as long as you have corpse walkers, as long as the spider is gonna be killing the monster and you're gonna be close to the corpses, you're always gonna summon your spiders. You don't have to have the grave binds, because the poison that the spiders kill the enemies count as your poison. It means the spiders actually kill the enemy, but it counts as my kill, so you can have like a loop of never ending summoning the spiders. So as you can see, I'm just running around, I'm not doing nothing, and my spiders are constantly respawning because they are applying the poison, and the poison counts as a my kill. But just because the spider is gonna be killing the enemies and applying the poison, and that's gonna count as a my kill, this has a downside. You will get bleed and corrupting blood on yourself because of that. That's why this is very important to have as much as possible immunity to bleeding and the corrupting blood. You won't feel that while mapping, because this flask most likely is gonna be most of the time up. If you're interested how my Atlas passive skill tree looks like, it's something like that. If you ever watched me on a live stream, you should exactly know that I do enjoy farming blights, especially with the new node on the blighted encounters on the normal maps. This node makes it very easily because you don't have to do anything. The blighted towers do most of the work for you. So that's how I made most of my currency. That's including getting the first 28 divines that I paid for the squire. By simply running blighted maps, I was farming a little bit of rituals, and I was farming the red altars as well. I would really appreciate if you can hit the like button and subscribe button, as this will really help me out growing the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later in my next video.